This year, Boston Partners in Education has been celebrating its 50th anniversary. The academic mentoring group recruits volunteers to narrow the gaps in learning and opportunity for students in the Boston Public Schools. To tell us about the program are its executive director, Pamela Civins, and one of the volunteers, Kathaleen Mercier. Thank you both very much for being with us.
Thank you.
I want to start with Pamela. I have to ask you about your fundraising because you seem to have done a great job this year.
Yeah, we broke a record this year. We raised over $690,000. It's a first for us, at least since I've been with the organization. We had over 500 people at the gala. We did a little bit bigger, better. We really wanted to mark this milestone, and so we actually did it right here at the BU Agganis Arena, and just had a lovely room where we had the program, and then we had music and dancing and dessert at the end. So it was a great celebration and a great fundraiser for us.
Kathaleen Mercier, you are just one example of so many people working in this organization. Tell us what kind of work you're doing as an academic mentor.
Well, as an academic mentor, I am working with a student in the classroom of the ESL 2 language class at the Jeremiah E. Burke High School. This student is in his second year at the Burke, and this is my second year working with him.
This is where you went to high school too, right?
This is also where I went to high school, yes. I graduated a very long time ago.
So what's it like? What do you do with the students you're mentoring?
Well, the students I work with, I actually attend the class with him. So what I do is when the class starts, I'm there, and I sit side by side with him, and we work together through whatever happens to happen in the classroom. So we're actually doing tasks together, we're writing together. I am helping him to pronounce English words, I am helping him with definitions, I'm helping him with writing, and so on and so forth.
Pamela, talk about how this plays out over and over again in the schools in these relationships, because you might have somebody who, maybe you don't know the language the student speaks originally, but none of us are experts in these things, and yet by spending time on a student, we're doing something right?
Oh yeah, spending time is helping, Kathleen's really helping her student gain some confidence. There he is in a new culture, a new school, new teachers, he's making new friends. And to have somebody who comes every week and sits with him and works with him and takes some time to maybe answer questions or to share maybe how she would write something versus how he is trying to write something. All of that goes a very long way. And sometimes you don't see the results, and Kathaleen might say this, sometimes there are good days and sometimes there are challenging days. But really, when you think about that, now she's been with her student for 2 years, and we love when that happens, when that continuity happens. I know that the young man she's working with has definitely benefited from, her help, whether it's he's participating more in class, he's getting along better with his fellow students, he's feeling like he fits in at the school, all of that, it really, having an extra adult, just one more adult in his life, I know is making a difference.
Kathaleen, this is one more learning experience for you.
It is. Initially, I was a bit apprehensive about getting started because I'd never done it before. But I decided I would commit myself to this endeavor, that it was important, that in particular I was motivated by the Black Lives Matter movement. I think that's very important. And I have found that it's extremely rewarding, and I hope to continue.
I got to ask you, now that you mentioned that motivation, Kathaleen, one of the things that researchers point out is that having a person of color in a school system can make an enormous difference, whether it's motivating or just getting better achievement from students. I mean, how do you feel that? Because you must be feeling that maybe you're filling a gap here that the regular teaching staff might not be able to fill.
Yes, I think that the way that students relate to me is different in the way that they relate to the teacher. There's less of a there's absolutely no disciplinary relationship at all. It's somewhat casual. The students know that I'm there. This student knows that I'm there for him, and he takes full advantage of that. he wants to learn English, and he wants to be able to speak English and communicate with his friends as well as he possibly can. Having me there, and I take the attitude that I'm just going to relax and try to go with the flow with this student to try to get to what he really needs. I can't really impose my thoughts about what he needs. I have to observe and respond to that.
This is BNN News, and we're talking with Pamela Civins and Kathaleen Mercier from Boston Partners in Education. Pamela, talk about this, because mentors, they're not just second-class teachers. They do something that teachers can't be expected to do.
Yeah, really, they're there to help the teachers. The teacher's got a whole classroom of kids in this particular class, a whole classroom of children who are learning English while they've got to take the MCAS, they want to graduate from high school, they're thinking about what's after high school, and yeah, her teacher cannot do it alone. And so having an academic mentor in the classroom, whether you're working with a one-on-one with a student or a small group of students, or even for the little children, the pre-K through grade 2, we'll put an adult in a whole classroom, just helps teachers so much. And those teachers who actually take the time and think about kids who are going to benefit from 1 hour, 2 hours each week of that extra support, they're thinking about who's going to benefit most. So they know their kids in the class, and they know that like, for example, Kathleen's student is really going to benefit from just that extra time with her. And Kathaleen was saying that she's in a classroom filled with kids from Cape Verde, but her student is actually from Bangladesh. So he's the only one in that classroom who's speaking a very different language than anybody else in that classroom. All of them can communicate in one way or and another, and English becomes that common language for them all, and that extra help just does, really does help that student.
Kathaleen, what do you think you get from being a mentor?
Well, I would say the reward is in the knowing that the student is appreciating what I'm providing for him. It's in watching the progress. It's in the moment-to-moment experience of being able to relate on a basic human level with a person this is a teenager, I'm a retiree, and yet we can find things in common, even though, this is a classroom setting. So we have, there are times when, say during the holidays, when he might speak about the fact that he's Muslim and how that is different from being a Christian. And yet we can talk about the fact that we each have traditions that we celebrate in those times.
Pamela, I know you want to sign up volunteers, but in addition to that, you've got to train them a bit too, because they need some help, some coaching things. How does that work?
Yeah, so certainly. So we have a whole vetting process. So yes, I want volunteers, bostonpartners.org, that's where you go. And to get it all started, you fill out a registration form. And from there, we will get in touch with the interested person. We invite people in for an interview because we want them to really understand what they're signing up for. That consistency that Kathaleen mentioned is really important. It is once a week for at least an hour over the school year. So people really need to understand that. We want to be able to answer any questions because a lot of them say, well, I'm not an expert in math, or I'm not an expert in being a reading teacher or a writing teacher. And so we just want to put them at ease because they're a volunteer who's there to support the child. So they're not teaching the classroom. They're really just helping that child by answering questions, by communicating with them. I think that, once they get through that interview and they come back, we have them fill out a query form as well, because we've got to do background checks on all of our volunteers. But we actually invite people to come in for a 2.5-hour training before they're ever matched with a student and placed in a high school. And I think that's really important because then they're with a group of people where they can kind of learn from each other. And we don't focus on the curriculum at the school, we really focus on what it means to be a mentor. And really, in this day and age, I think where we're always hooked to a phone or looking at some sort of screen, this sort of communication is actually, I feel like we're more relevant now than we might have been 50 years ago, just because anybody who is in school today, they really do have to learn how to communicate, not with just people of their own age or people in really sort of, a teacher is in a, an authoritative sort of position, but really somebody who's out in the community. And I think that's just really important. And we give our volunteers an opportunity to actually do the same thing, meet the young people who are in our community. It's so important because they are our future.
I know you have research showing that these relationships can help academic performance, but when you think about ripple effects, what would you point to?
Well, I think, ripple effects is, things don't just change overnight. And, just even I think about sometimes when I was in school as a young person, who did affect me? I mean, in a positive way and sometimes in a negative way. And I remember that, from a long time ago. I won't tell you how many years, but that I think that's where it comes in, where somebody might not actually, maybe Kathleen's student won't remember Kathleen's name in 20 years, but he will remember, oh, when I first got to this country, there was somebody who would come every week in my classroom and sit with me and help me, and so then you've got that. I think that ripple effect is also that pay it forward kind of mentality, and I think that's what's going to keep our society. It's, to me right now, it's all about what can you do locally? What can you do to help your neighbors? Because the times are a little strange right now, so worldwide. And so I think to just kind of take it down to your block, your neighborhood, a place that you connected with from when you were young, there are opportunities to do that, and I hope people take the time to do it.
And one more time, Pamela, the website?
It's bostonpartners.org.
Thank you both very much, Pamela Civins and Kathaleen Mercier from Boston Partners in Education.